Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we're diving into a technology that sounds like science fiction, a procedure often sensationalized with the term three-parent babies. But behind the headlines lies a story of profound hope for families facing incurable diseases and a complex ethical debate that forces us to ask fundamental questions about what it means to be human. This is the story of mitochondrial replacement therapy, or MRT. To understand this groundbreaking technology, we first need to shrink down to the microscopic level, inside our own cells. Think of your cells as tiny, bustling cities. The nucleus is the city hall, holding the master blueprint for your entire body in its DNA. But every city needs power plants, and in our cells, those are the mitochondria. These tiny organelles are the powerhouses, converting the food we eat into the energy that fuels everything, from the beating of our heart to the firing of our neurons. Now, here's the crucial part. Mitochondria have their own DNA. It's a tiny, circular strand with just 37 genes, completely separate from the 20,000 genes in our nucleus. And this mitochondrial DNA, or mtDNA, has a unique inheritance rule. You get it exclusively from your mother. While nuclear DNA is a mix from both parents, mtDNA is passed down through the egg. This means if a mother has mutations in her mitochondrial DNA, she will pass them on to all of her children. When these cellular powerhouses fail because of those mutations, the consequences are catastrophic, especially for energy-hungry organs like the brain, heart, and muscles. This leads to a group of devastating conditions known as mitochondrial diseases. An estimated 1 in 5,000 people has one of these disorders. Imagine a condition like Leigh syndrome, a severe neurological disorder that appears in the first year of life, progressively robbing a child of their ability to move and think, and is usually fatal within a few years. Or Melius syndrome, which leads to seizures, dementia, and stroke-like episodes. There are no cures. For families affected, it's a journey of heartbreak. Take the story of Liz Curtis, whose daughter Lily died from a mitochondrial disease at just 8 months old. This devastating experience led Liz to found the Lily Foundation, a group that campaigns for new reproductive options. These families face an impossible choice: risk passing on a fatal illness, or forgo having children who are biologically related to them. It is this exact dilemma that mitochondrial replacement therapy was created to solve. So, how does it work? MRT is a highly sophisticated form of IVF that combines the genetic material of 3 people to create an embryo free from mitochondrial disease. There are 2 main techniques. The first is called maternal spindle transfer, or MST. This happens before fertilization. Scientists take an egg from the intended mother, who has faulty mitochondria, and an egg from a healthy donor. They carefully remove the nucleus from the donor's healthy egg, leaving behind an egg cell full of healthy mitochondria. Then, they take the spindle, a structure containing the mother's chromosomes, her core genetic identity, and transfer it into the empty donor egg. The result is a reconstructed egg, with the mother's nuclear DNA and the donor's healthy mitochondrial DNA. This new egg is then fertilized with the father's sperm. The world's very first baby born via MRT in 2016 was created using this technique. The second method is pronuclear transfer, or PNT, which happens after fertilization. Here, both the mother's egg and a donor's egg are fertilized with the father's sperm, creating 2 separate embryos. Before the genetic material fully combines, scientists remove the 2 pronuclei, one from the egg, one from the sperm, from the mother's embryo. These contain the nuclear DNA of both parents. They then transfer these parental pronuclei into the donor embryo, which has had its own pronuclei removed. The resulting embryo has the nuclear DNA from its parents and the healthy mitochondria from the donor. This is the technique pioneered at Newcastle University in the UK, which led to the country's historic decision to legalize the procedure. The journey to get here was long. The UK took a remarkably thorough approach, involving years of scientific reviews, ethical analyses, and public consultation. In 2015, it became the first country to create a specific legal framework for MRT, regulated by the Human Fertilization and Embryology Authority. By 2025, it was reported that 8 healthy babies had been born in the UK using the PNT technique, offering new hope to families. But while the UK was carefully laying the legal groundwork, the world's first baby was born via MRT under very different circumstances. In 2016, a US-based team led by Dr. John Zhang performed the procedure for a Jordanian woman who was a carrier for the fatal Lee syndrome. To get around strict US regulations, Dr. Zhang's team created the embryo in New York and then implanted it in Mexico, a country where, as he was quoted, "there are no rules for this." This act of scientific tourism was a huge milestone, but it was also highly controversial, sparking a global debate about performing experimental procedures outside of a strong regulatory system. Today, the global legal landscape is a patchwork. It's legal and strictly regulated in the UK and, as of 2022, in Australia. But in the United States, it's effectively banned due to a legislative provision that prohibits the FDA from even reviewing research that involves heritable genetic modification in a human embryo. This brings us to the heart of the controversy, the ethical maze of MRT. The biggest debate is about germline modification. Because the donor's healthy mitochondria will be passed down through the female line, this is, by definition, a heritable genetic change. For decades, there's been a broad consensus against modifying the human germline, fearing a slippery slope towards non-therapeutic designer babies. Proponents argue that we should make a distinction. They say MRT isn't altering the nuclear DNA that defines our traits, but simply replacing the tiny mitochondrial component, which makes up less than 0.1% of our total DNA. The UK government accepted this view, calling it mitochondrial replacement, not genetic modification. Critics, however, say this is just semantics, and that crossing the germline Rubicon for any reason is a step onto a dangerous path. Safety is another major concern. The transfer process isn't perfect. A small number of the mother's faulty mitochondria can get carried over. There's a risk that these faulty mitochondria could multiply over time, a process called reversion, potentially causing disease later in life. There's also a theoretical risk of mitonuclear incompatibility, that the mother's nuclear DNA might not work perfectly with the donor's mitochondria. Since the technology is so new, we simply don't have long-term health data. This is why mandatory long-term follow-up of children born via MRT is a key part of the UK's regulations. Then there's the question of identity. The term three-parent baby is scientifically inaccurate. Over 99.8% of the child's DNA comes from the mother and father. But it raises questions about how a child might feel knowing they have genetic material from 3 people. In the UK, the mitochondrial donor remains anonymous, much like an organ donor. But the psychological impact on the child as they grow up remains an open question. Finally, while MRT offers a unique solution, critics point out that alternatives like using a donor egg or adoption exist. But for many couples, the powerful desire to have a child who is genetically related to both parents makes MRT the only option that allows a woman to pass on her nuclear DNA without also passing on her mitochondrial disease. Mitochondrial replacement therapy is a monumental achievement. For the few families who have welcomed healthy children because of it, it is a miracle. It represents the profound hope that science can offer in the face of terrible diseases. But this hope comes with a heavy dose of responsibility. MRT has forced us to confront the limits of genetic intervention, to weigh the desire for biological children against the potential risks to future generations. The story of MRT is far from over. As we stand on this new frontier, it serves as a powerful reminder that with the extraordinary power to rewrite the code of life comes the solemn duty to proceed with caution, transparency, and respect for the generations to come.